All right. Hi, I'm Reggie Manning with Vista Data. Quick intro. Originally, been in this industry between tech and education for the past 20 years. So education and business, had a chance to see charter schools, tutoring organizations, build schools, work with businesses. And with the advent of AI, we've seen some scaling up and some opportunities that present itself in the current future that we've never had opportunity to see in the past. So we're excited to kind of dive into where this could be from a technical perspective, as well as what it presents for business, education, and the future overall.
Thank you, Raji. My name is Ravi Kennedy. I just a few minutes ago spoke about AI. So my background is technology. I've worked pretty much 2 decades in technology in multiple domains, multiple industries. I got a chance to explore different areas of technology, including artificial intelligence from the very early on. In the different domains, in banking, healthcare, and finance, insurance space. So my current focus has been, from the past few years, is AI in healthcare space, especially revenue cycle management. I'm currently Senior Vice President of Engineering at Jory AI. At Jory, we automate revenue cycle management processes, which includes prior authorization, eligibility verification, claim submission, claims denials management. We heavily use artificial intelligence and automation to automate some of these manual tasks so that resources, the human efforts, can be focused on the things that are important for healthcare. If humans are occupied with administrative activities, they cannot focus their efforts on things that really matter in healthcare. As an example, humans need to focus on patient care, on research, instead of burdening them in administrative activities. So how efficient the healthcare space, we are spending a large percentage of our GDP on healthcare, especially in the United States. It's more than 18%. So almost 30% of the spend, almost 1/3, depending on the research, 1/3 of the spend is going into healthcare administrative activities. So as we are talking about intelligence evolution, one of the key ideas is how can we use technology to automate some of these tasks so that we can reduce those administrative activities and focus on the things that are prioritizing. That is one of the aspects that I'm focusing on. I'm sure as you are coming from a different background in education, right? So how has this intelligence evolution changing the landscape in education?
Yeah, so particularly in education and just entrepreneurship and business as in general, I use the example, particularly in education, is that now we have the opportunity to customize learning, right? So historically, you need a tutor. That tutor you pick. So I actually picked tutors for kids before, and our company had an opportunity to have a project where how can you replicate tutors without replicating tutors? And so harnessing the power of AI, you can train a bot, if you will, AI intelligence, to understand the background of the kid, where they're going, and triage the goals, particularly to the outcomes that you want to see. But this wasn't available 10 years ago. At least it wasn't readily accessible. And when you think about what we can do and transform, it's really about the customization, not only in education, but in business. Like you said, those mundane, redundant tasks that you could outsource, like you can insource it now with technology to move it forward. What have you seen more in like the healthcare space?
So in healthcare space, as I mentioned, particularly in RCM, revenue cycle management,
right,
which is a technical term for the back-end administration processes that happens. You have a lot of scope to automate um, in that space. For example, claim submission process or prior authorization, benefits verification. So there is a lot of scope to use technology to automate these processes. Like I mentioned, we healthcare systems can save a lot of cost and redirect that into research. That is one of the areas where healthcare can take advantage of technology, the intelligence evolution. In addition to that, healthcare is a vast, complex field. So, technology, especially automation or artificial intelligence, augmented intelligence, can be used in variety of ways. Now, think about it. A lot of healthcare information is embedded in clinical notes that physicians write.
Right.
That's a valuable information about patients' historical data. It could help in determining, predicting some of the treatment plans. How could we get that information, extract that information from that clinical handwritten notes? Sometimes the notes, even though they are typed, they are in a very specific format. It's a very unstructured data. I hope most of you would have heard about this term unstructured data. I mean, this data is like extremely complex to organize and read. A lot of data is embedded in MRIs, X-rays. So how can we aggregate all of this information in healthcare field and use technologies like AI to interpret that and consolidate between different healthcare systems? And that it's not currently happening in the scale that we are anticipating, but there is a huge scope in healthcare industry, especially to utilize the intelligence evolution and make significant benefits to the industry as a whole.
Yeah, so we've been talking in this fireside chat type of conversation. We talk about what the limits are, but what are the opportunities with AI, right? Like there are a lot of things we can do, but what can't we do? When we think about the neural mapping and machines learning and tracking the pathways the same way our brain does. Like, what are the things when we think about what are the opportunities that we can't even envision that it could happen? We know the Terminator side of it, right, where things go wrong, right, and it goes off the track. But if we focus on the power of AI, I like to use the analogy of looking at AI like fire. Like when you first heard of fire, like it's something that you can build, and you can build food. You can cook food on it. You can heat a home, and you can also power a steam engine, create steam by boiling water. But you can also take fire and burn out a whole forest, right? So there's an ethical explanation to what you should be doing, as well as like how do we harness this almost like a laser to do things that's beneficial for us in like the business or the healthcare world.
Yes, I mean, AI is a tool, like any technology tool, which can benefit.
Right.
At the same time, if that tool goes into the wrong hands, which can cause unintended consequences as well. Right, that is one of the reasons we were talking in my keynote about the adoption rates. Why some of the industries could not adopt AI with the speed with which we want, even though there is a scope for value, right? Like I talked about healthcare or banking or insurance. Some of these industries couldn't adapt like sales and marketing function is adapting, because there are a lot of unintended consequences. Number one that comes to my mind is security, privacy,
Right.
Regulations,
Yeah.
bias. Because if you think about these industries, banking, healthcare, insurance, you're operating with a lot of customer data.
Right.
Customer data is what? General public data. That's data that belongs to you and I. So I am not going to give consent for an AI algorithm to use my data and my healthcare data or my banking data, my financial data to make predictions.
Right.
Right? So that is where we don't have enough regulations in place because this field is
So no.
fast evolving. Organizations are trying to catch up. Government is trying to catch up. We don't understand this technology well. We know a little bit, but we don't know where it goes. So we are operating with a lot of unknowns here.
Yeah.
So those are the downsides. If you think of AI, I'm optimistic about AI and the future of AI in a general way. At the same time, the responsibility of using AI, the responsible AI or ethical AI component lies in three different agencies. Number one is government, right?
Right.
There should be strict government regulations. As this field evolves, obviously all the governments, if you look at Europe, US, everybody's working on those regulations now. Number two is organizations. These organizations that are building these applications and deploying these applications for the use. Yeah, so go ahead.
You just mentioned that everybody is working on regulations. Does that include China and Russia?
So that's a,
No, that's
yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I do not want to go into specifics of which country is doing a great job. I don't want to give a scorecard for each of these countries. But my point is,
sorry,
ev-
yes or no?
there are regulations in every country to some extent. To some extent, that's I would say yes. How they are kind of coming up with those regulations, whether is it something like that helps across the, is it to just protect their interests? Sometimes there would be a chance that every country looks to protect their own interests, right? There could be a chance, but that's why there should be a general, this is like environmental regulations, right? So if we think of AI, are you following the regulations that are being developed on the environment, right? None of the 160 countries came to a conclusion on how to come out with a regulation on the environment.
Yeah.
So this is one of those aspects. AI is going to be a much bigger problem than that. And let me conclude with my third point. I know you passed me before I say. So the second is organizations, and third is everybody, the end user, consumers, you and I. We all have to be responsible in use of AI, and we have to protect our own interests. We need to know all the possible options that are available for us to protect our own data. So the responsibility lies with all three agencies.
So the other part, when we think about the future of AI, there's a new generation of people, right? And learning, jobs, all this is going to change. This is a disruption. So how do we, as we think about it, like we have to be very conscious in the jobs of the future, because the training of 20 years ago is not going to prepare you for the jobs of the future. We were having a discussion earlier about coding, right? Well, hey, you need to learn how to code, but prompts can write codes. Not that it's hands-free, but you still need to be able to go in and audit it. But where is the inflection point of like prompt engineering, as well as, for example, with some students, we took some middle school students and we're teaching them the fundamentals of AI. They learn large language model, design thinking, all this in a middle school environment. And they're able to absorb and learn these models as middle school students. And the output capstone on that project was that they created a chatbot that was AI powered for particular community partners, the Chamber of Commerce, a church, and other organizations. But I feel like we have to go upstream to reach our youth in order to make sure they have the skill sets. Like Vincent was talking earlier today about, AV and recording. Like you put it in their hands, they have the elasticity in their brain to learn more and be able to have that effect on, humanity with, the different jobs, as well as what are the jobs of the future that we need to make sure that our kids in the future are prepared for. So that's another, aspect of when you think about machine learning and AI. how we consume information, how we learn is changing. It's at a faster clip, right? Like you're watching YouTube videos. That's how you get information. People absorbing information from TikTok and Instagram, as well as like some of the platforms like Coursera. Like all of these ways to consume information have changed throughout the years, and it's based off of data as well as dictating, what do you want to know and what's accessible to you. So when you think about it, and this the audience as well, like what are some aspects we think moving forward, like how do we equip the current generation and the future generation to be ready for the jobs and demands that now this new technology is reshaping how we did business in the past?
Teach them how to plumb.
It's late in the evening.
Well, no, that's what
Yeah.
Jimmy Hinton said. He said that the only safe jobs will be plumbing, because AI and robots don't have the dexterity that humans have.
And AI can learn that too.
Yeah.
So,
But should we really be looking for safe jobs?
so
That's the only job, right?
Like, I mean, if the goal is like find a safe job or a secure job, then you're already writing yourself in obsolescence.
Well, the
So-
problem is we don't know, right? The speed at which AI is going to take over. So I'm a
So-
pessimist.
Yeah.
so go ahead.
You were just mentioning something, Reggie, earlier, a few minutes ago, where you were talking about educating kids and the elasticity
Yeah.
of the mind. This is a program was this a program you were talking about?
Yeah, it's a program that we're leveraging in schools where it's already written. It's in a learning management system, and the kids can learn prompt engineering as well as the foundations of AI to continue to build on it. It's a company out of Croatia called STEMI that we're partnering with. We brought this technology from Eastern Europe over to Memphis, Tennessee, and kids are able to, use these tools and plug in. So it's not about, do you have the capability? It's a lot about accessibility, being able to democratize it to those who don't have access to it.
Yeah, no, I was asking, and that's good to know. And I was asking because I think that you inherently are answering part of that thing, which is the education. Like how do we prepare for that future? And it's the education, it's being aware of the evolution of it. I mean, the word that I see on the board on the screen here is exploring. And the fact that, I think you mentioned this in another conversation, the fact that AI is so new right now, that everyone in the space is really exploring the possibilities of everything. So when you add exploration to education,
Yeah.
and you remain curious, elasticity, all these words, these key words to me, is what we need for that future. So hats off to you and what you all are doing, piecing together this with the Croatian company. I think that's phenomenal for our youth. The question is, can you scale and make it bigger sooner so our kids can get more access to it?
Sure.
I'd like to piggyback on that. Can you talk a little bit, Reginald, about your experience with doing this in the schools? My predilection with the stuff that I do in trying to mentor and educate is that this stuff won't scale on the educational model, right? Because the things that you inherently need or want to do, it bisects the way that the public education system works, right? In terms of how it's built, rubrics and learning outcomes
Yeah.
and all of the sort of things that professional educators talk through all the time. How is that going, and how did you guys deal with that? Do you, as an outcome of that, is doable in the school system, or does it need to be a bolt-on, something that looks like an after-school program or a summer program, or anything else?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the school is actually a charter school, which is more of like an innovation subset of a major school district. And the course was through a STEM class. So they already have STEM written in the curriculum as an elective. So we plugged in the STEM to say this is STEM for us. But in terms of scaling, like there are always electives, right? And at some point, I believe that AI and just being fluent in it would be similar to, do you understand Microsoft Office? Right? Like it's just going to be understood. Like, do you understand Word? Like you don't really need to put Word on your resume or PowerPoint. Like there's inherent understanding that in business, if you're conducting it, you understand the fundamentals of it. So I think it's that important. It's not going anywhere. People fear it for various reasons, but they fear the calculator, right? Like people aren't going to be able to count anymore because you have this new device that you can just punch a number in and you stop learning. But it's in spreadsheets and Excel. So I think it's more of adapting to the technology versus fearing it. Like, obviously there's some guardrails you have to put up, but being able to understand what the opportunities are and proceed with caution, I think is the opportunity to do something great. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so one of the things you're talking about looking to expand and maybe move the next generation towards that. So within the AI models that you're talking about, I'll take the example of healthcare. So you're talking about dealing with claims and all those things. A lot of that is subjectivity that doesn't necessarily fall into an algorithm. Howie, maybe that next generation, have them teach AI to deal with some of those, because you may have two of the same sort of claims. This one is illegitimate, this one is legitimate, but how would they know? Would the claims thing be able to say that this person lives in an area where there's a whole lot of people who have that issue? So this is common, but that's not on an application. This one, no to both of them. So you see what I'm saying? The subjectivity that often comes into approving insurance, approving funding to pay for things, all within that healthcare realm, which I think everyone in here has had that experience one way or another.
Yeah.
So,
That's where the learning aspect of these algorithms comes into picture. The more it learns, it works in a similar way that a human learns from experience, right? So how do we deal on subjectivity? Because we have a pattern recognition in our minds, and we recognize which is a false claim and which is a right claim, because intuitively we use certain patterns that we learned based on the rules, established rules. So that is where, when I said I'm optimistic about AI, the reason because human mind is a million times more powerful than any AI that it can create. So you can never automate complete cognition pattern of human mind. So at some point, the subjectivity that you are talking about, the more complex it becomes, that is where humans are going to focus on. So we are going to automate. AI is going to learn, and it's going to automate. But the problems, there is always going to be more complex problems for humans to solve, and AI lets you focus on those problems. In a way, we are taking away our focus from day-to-day problems or mediocre problems. We are putting our focus on the complex problems that humans can only solve. That actually increases our cognition capabilities in a way.
but, on a serious note, plumbing
Mhm.
is something that I have my two oldest sons in fourth and third year computer science. And within the past 4 years, 3 or 4 years, everybody's been looking, my wife has looked at me and said, why did you tell our kids to get into computer science when AI is advancing so rapidly that in 3 to 5 years time, there may not be a need for computer science programs, right? Because AI.
So you should realize that AI is created by the computer programmers.
No, what I'm saying is that if we want to prepare our children for the future,
Mhm.
is it not a good idea to teach them about plumbing?
So
Plumbing has its place.
plumbing has its place, yes. Every profession has its place.
Would that be the only profession?
No. So software development, so you're talking about the software development that 5-10 years ago, right? So there is going to be software development, and who developed this AI right now, and who is going to develop the upcoming AI algorithms? It's software engineers who could do programming, and that is where your kids would be working.
Look, you
If
still.
you-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go-
Well,
uh,
yeah, on that, I mean, the AI is just going to be a new tool in the arsenal. Like,
exactly.
as a professional software developer, I can tell you that I don't spend the majority of my time writing code. No more than, like, I
this. So we spend months trying that source to find out it's not the right source, and then months doing that, and that, and that. And my team would love to have something saying, there's a 80% possibility that everything over there is what you need, 20% there, 30%, and now we can allocate time where we need, and they can focus on what they really need to focus on. It's just one example, but there are some really outlandish examples, or other examples where, yeah, for those that are crunching numbers, AI is probably going to replace some of those things, and some other mundane tasks. But to plumbing, I think the trades
Yeah.
are going to always be there.
Yeah, and I think
Go ahead.
I guess as we conclude, we think about the role of AI in just humanity is that it's going to elevate us to do more executive skills, and then some of the more mundane tasks we're outsourcing, we can let it go. So think about it as a promotion for society where we can focus on the things that computers can't do, creativity, just all the interactions between humans, and then use that as a tool, not as the future of like, it's going to take over my life or take over the world. So.
And it is so interesting that this topic generated so much energy in this group at 5:30 p.m.
Yeah.
So I'm very glad about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really not AI.
Well, you know what's really interesting? There was a statistic really quickly that was taken years ago by MIT and a school out of India, I can't remember the name of it, where it said that 85% of businesses, there are 300,000 businesses globally that they talk to, there's 85% of them say they hire people based on their soft skills.
Hmm.
And they will fire people based on their hard skills. Soft skills are your ability to communicate and build relationships and talk to people. Hard skills is how you actually apply and implement your job. Then they said they reverse engineered that and said that those companies say 85% of them will fire mostly based on soft skills versus hard skills. People that can't get along in teams and maybe creating a toxic environment. At the end of the day, most parents, they say globally, they raise their kids to focus on the hard skills versus the soft.
Yep.
And I think in this conversation, when we talk about what are you going to be doing in AI and how you can get through the space, I think Reggie just mentioned it, and Robbie, I think you just said something to that, is helping our kids and helping individuals, even some adults need some training on this, is how do you engage and interact and communicate with people more effectively and efficiently, and using AI to make those data-driven decisions on a daily basis. I think that's where we probably need to be, and that's the safest place for the future of AI and the future of our children.
I think you're right. As I say, plumbing is not the only sector.
Yeah, on that note, I think let me conclude with the 3 quick points what AI cannot do, right? Like you said, like you pointed out. One, AI cannot bring the contextual understanding that human is going to bring. That is always there, whether it is coding, plumbing, irrespective of anything. So AI cannot bring contextual understanding. Number 2, AI cannot develop a vision or strategy for your product. It is you develop that vision and AI is going to help you. And number 3 is that interpersonal skills, motivating, leading, leadership. That is always a human skill and AI can never replace. So as we evolve, those are the things that humans would be focusing more on.
We'll pick this conversation up at the bar.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to come around. For those who want to honor the time.
Thank you so much for that, Ravi and Reginald. Yes, keep this same energy for tomorrow morning. I love to see it at 5:30 in the evening, but it's time to go.